Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video 311 from San Jose, California, where the air quality is terrible right now. I updated my kind of personal savings graph. This is the personal savings graph cut down to just be 2018, not the whole thing, so I can focus on 2018. There's really only a few accounts that I've contributed to this year. Anyhow, as you can see, and I've talked about before, between July and September, I kind of slacked off. I took some vacations. I saved some money, but not nearly as much as I saved in the first part of the year, and also not nearly as much as I'm saving now. So I knew when September started that I had to hop back on the savings horse. I had to save most of my income for the rest of the year. So it's nice to see that this line is kind of continuing to go up and to the right. Like I'm doing what I need to be doing. So that's always good. It's today reminded me that, wow, man, it's like 9:25 and I'm like doing this video. Today reminded me that there are 2 days a month that matter the most from my savings, and they are the 2 days that I am paid. My behavior on those 2 days will determine how much I save that month. I either transfer the money into savings or I don't. If I transfer the money into savings, the next 2 weeks is going to be a good savings 2 weeks. If I don't transfer the money into savings, I will find something to spend it on. There's just too much cool stuff. And recently, what my strategy has been that when I get paid, I'll buy something that I want, but it'll be like a small thing. And when I say a small thing, I'm talking about something that is, let's try to do a little calculation here. I'm talking about something that is, say, 5% of my paycheck, right? Or less than 5% of my paycheck, more accurately. And then I will be like, yeah, I got something new, cool. And I'll be stoked about that, and I'll be like, so I don't need to spend the rest of this money because I just got this cool new thing, so I'll just stick it into savings. And, like used video game stuff from thrift shops is a great way, if you're a nerd, to get like a materialism fix, or like I've got the collector's disease, like a collector's fix. And then, then you have the rest of that paycheck to, obviously set aside some of it for your expenses, but you want to put as much as possible into savings. So maybe 5% is not your number, maybe 2% is your number, who knows? That's not what is important. What's important is that you psychologically get yourself into the frame of mind where you're fine transferring a big chunk of money into savings when you get paid. Or you could do it another way that I'm probably going to set up for myself in my next job, which is, instead of having only one bank account that money is deposited to when you get paid, instead there are 2 accounts. And one of them is your checking account that you have a debit card for and that you can use to pay for things. And the other is one that you have no card for, maybe that you've hidden the checkbook for. It'll be connected to investment accounts, so you can transfer that money into investments when you need to. But the point is that money is harder to access intentionally so that you don't even have the temptation to spend it. Because the money in your checking account, the level of your checking out balance is kind of telling you, like, hey, the next 2 weeks is going to be really good because you're rich, or the next 2 weeks it's going to be okay. It's going to be living on the budget that you have defined. At this point, like, my budget is so regular, and like the things I do are so regular in terms of, going to the grocery store and buying cat food and, driving the same commute to work and listening to my audiobooks from Audible and catching a Netflix show here and there, occasionally, driving for hikes, that it's easy for me to stay within my budget because I just have to do the range of activities that are normal to me. And, this comes after years of living on a budget, years of doing a budget on a monthly basis. And, for the past year or so, I guess I've basically had the same budget. Like late last year, I trimmed some expenses like my cell phone and the storage expenses. But I've basically been on the same budget for the past at least, 8 months, 10 months, something like that. And the earlier that you begin the budgeting process, the earlier that you begin staying on a budget, the earlier living that way is going to feel completely normal. And you're not going to feel deprived because you have spent enough time figuring out what expenditures of money bring you joy and which don't. Which expenditures make you feel wealthy, which don't. For me, my coffee routine in the morning makes me feel wealthy. I really enjoy it. I've talked about it before. And so one of the things I bought this year was a new coffee pot that was stainless steel instead of aluminum, because my old coffee pot was actually getting wear on it. And part of that's my fault because of the way that I banged it around when I got the coffee grounds out. But point is, my fancy new coffee pot, it doesn't cost all that much compared with other things that I want. But I use it every morning. It looks good every morning. It makes me coffee every morning. I like the coffee. And so the utility of that money spent was higher than other expenditures that I've done for enjoyment in the past. So you really can identify certain ways to spend money that bring your happiness and your kind of sense of being wealthy up to a level where you don't feel the need to spend as much money. But you have to be intentional about thinking about it. And you have to be intentional about planning your spending if the whole thing is going to work. So, yeah, I've talked before about emotional planning year round in terms of how are you going to feel in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, in the fall? What times of year do you tend to spend more? How are you going to prevent yourself from doing that? And so I'd like you to also think about what is your planning around your feelings on payday. When you know that payday is coming and it's a Friday, do you do things differently than if your payday is a Tuesday? Can you look back historically at your spending and see a difference there? And what could you do to change that? What could you do to encourage yourself to put a huge chunk of that paycheck into savings? What would inspire you to do that? Do you have to have some kind of picture of what it's going to be like when you can do whatever you want and then you just stare at that on payday? Or do you buy a really, really fancy coffee and a really, really fancy pastry that morning? And then as you're drinking the coffee and eating the pastry, that's when you transfer the money out of your account into an investment account on your phone at the peak of your pastry, sugar, caffeine consumption. I don't know, but I do know that it is far better to consume 2 amazing pastries and 2 amazing coffees a month and transfer the money into a savings or investment account that's harder to access than it is to have a normal breakfast and not save that money. That's for sure. Even if that fancy breakfast is $20, which for me that's a lot for breakfast. I know that brunch, brunch can easily hit $20. But even if it's like, gold flake covered pastry, who cares? It's still better to have spent money on the gold flake pastry and put $500 into a savings account than to eat Cheerios for breakfast and then slowly spend that $500 over the next 2 weeks on random crap. So think about that. Think about what you're going to do on your payday to encourage yourself to make the decision that is best for future you, and that really maximizes your happiness in the long run. All right, well, that is it for video number 311. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that if you haven't already, you will consider making your own 2018 savings chart so that you can have a baseline to encourage yourself to keep going up and to the right, and have a fabulous evening.